the effect that it has on the player. And obviously, when a student athlete is going to get to the level that they're at, they better be tough. But it's sort of got to the point where I was seeing it is crossing some major boundaries. We're going way beyond trash talk, right? Trash talk is trash talk, but this is like when I'm hearing stories from multiple campuses that players are being DM'd, go kill yourself, watch out, I'm gonna find you and kill you. That's a different story. That's not trash talk. That's actual, like, if you did that in person, you'd be arrested. And actually, legally, I researched it in the country, all the states in the union, you can persecute someone for doing that to you online. Here's the problem. Who are these people? They've got these fake names with no picture. And how are you supposed to persecute that? Picture of a logo with some random name of the mascot, and that's their handle. Like, how do you even know who that is? That could be, and if you put yourself in the mind of the athlete, that could be your teacher. That could be a fellow student. That could be the person who works at the restaurant you're eating at. Like, you have no idea. That person could be cross country, of course. You don't know. That's the fun part, is you don't know. And so that's what really starts to get in their head. The players I'm noticing that are being affected by this sort of personal attack is it starts to create a lot of fear and anxiety, because who is it and when is it and how much more? And then, yay, I get to play again on Saturday on national television and have it happen again, maybe, because I'm not perfect. No athlete's ever going to play a perfect game. And as moms, we have an ongoing conversation that actually what we love about our players being student athletes is what they learn by making mistakes. That's true for any of us, right? We learn the most when we make mistakes. Yet somehow in college sports, mistakes are unacceptable. We're supposed to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. I don't know if y'all know this yet, but I'm going to just pop the bubble for you. Be free. Nobody's perfect. So that's the greatest lesson our students learn playing college sports or any kind of activity you're involved in. Nobody's perfect. So it kind of heightened for me. I think it was like 2 months ago. I was hearing so many stories from different campuses of these different families I know. And the student athletes now are faced with, I just have to turn off my social media off. Like, I can't handle this. And I remember I called Chris, I'm talking to Shona. I was like, that seems unreasonable. So you're 19, 20, 21 years old. You've grown up with social media. And now your only way to protect yourself is to completely disconnect. How would you all feel? Turn off all your social media. That's the only way you feel safe. That's like how you connect to your friends and make plans and meet new people. You're just supposed to completely disengage from that. That's where I thought there's something not happening here that needs to happen. If that's the result, the student athlete needs to be completely isolated from everybody. Adults can't use emotional maturity and not threaten their lives. What about that option? Why does the student need to be totally isolated and cut themselves off from the world? Why can't the adults figure out? You shouldn't be threatening a 19, 20, 21-year-old. CJ Stroud. I mean, what was it? 6 weeks ago, a month ago? The I Hate CJ Stroud movement started. Wow, and now he's in the Heisman conversation. There was an entire movement on Twitter called I Hate CJ Stroud because of one loss. His family left the game that day and was assaulted in the parking lot. And those fans got arrested because of one loss. And you know what's amazing is CJ's just one player on the team. How is it his entire fault that they lost the game? And people were literally going after him for one loss. So now he's a hero. That's where I'm just like, adults need to be reminded we can use some emotional maturity in this. We can love our teams. We can want to win. But these are people. These are humans. It doesn't need to go to this level. So we all reached out to each other and we all just started doing Zoom meetings once a week and talking about what we thought was important. Everyone has chimed in. Everyone's ideas are incorporated. We started social media messaging that pulls from the things that were on our heart. And Monica introduced us to Nicole, and then here it is. So I'm going to pass it along. Who's next? Monica. I'll let Monica go because Monica and Amanda have to jump in a little bit. So I'll let Monica talk next.
Hello, everyone. My name's Monica Daniels, and I am the mother to Paris Johnson Jr., and he's a sophomore at Ohio State. And first of all, I just want to say we are excited to be at Ohio State, and it's just a blessing. I know Stacy touched a little bit about the process and the journey on how we all came together going through the recruiting process. And some of us ended up together and some of us ended up at different universities. But what makes our process so unique is that we get to celebrate with one another and we get to cheer on our kids at other schools. But what's really sad about today is that we're brought together because of hate. And that's the part that's very challenging for me, is that we're not brought together right now in the spirit of love, but in a spirit of hate. And so we just want to come together and change that theme and to, again, talk a little bit more about using the right words, the correct words, and not negativity, because negative energy is not going to encourage any of our kids, male or females, to perform at their highest potential. That's not going to motivate our students to be successful on the field, to be successful off the field. But what motivates each other is through the spirit of love. That's what motivates. And so I'm glad that we are here to shed light on what's happening to our sons and our daughters, that's happening behind the scenes. Some of it is happening right before our eyes on social media, but our kids are being victimized behind the scenes. It's the private direct messages that our sons and daughters are reading. And so it's time for us to shed light on that. And it's time for us to come together to begin to change that. Because again, Stacy already mentioned that these individuals cannot come to us or to our children face to face and say these threatening things because they would be arrested, but they like to hide behind these false pictures, these false accounts to share the hate. And it's troubling. It's extremely troubling. And that's why we're here today and hoping we can all come together to give each other the freedom to say, we're going to stand up for what's right. And we're going to use love to change this.
Thank you, Monica. That was awesome. Let me jump up to Amanda. I know, Amanda, you need to chime in here. Amanda Babb, I don't know if y'all know this, her son also plays at Ohio State, and she's been the Ohio State Parent Group's president. She's been an amazing, well, all these women have been amazing contributions to the group. But she comes with, a whole different perspective, not just as a player's mom, but kind of overseeing all the moms, which we really appreciate. So Amanda, you're up.
Yep. Thanks, Stacy. And thank you all for the opportunity to come and talk about this terrible subject. But I do appreciate the opportunity, and all of you that are on Zoom or in person that care about this and want to learn more. So thank you, Dr. Nicole Kraft, as well, for providing this opportunity. I would have loved to have been there in person, but I'm getting on the road here and about. That's why I wanted to go first to come up and attend the game tomorrow. So yes, I'm Amanda Babb. I'm Cameron Babb's stepmom, and I've been the president for the Football Parent Association for the last 2 years. And so Stacy gave a little introduction on how this came together. And I think I was unable to attend the Oregon game. I have a daughter who is playing soccer and getting recruited as well. And she had a soccer game that weekend in Chicago. So I was actually in Chicago. And after the game, I called Monica. Monica and I were talking. She was driving back home. And she was just telling me some of the things she had been hearing and seeing. And, we had a long conversation, and I just said, we have to do something about this. And I think about that time, Stacy was thinking the same thing. And so it was really great to come together with this group of women to shed light on this subject as well. And the perspective I was thinking about when I was talking to Stacy was, I'm sure you all remember last year when the football season got canceled, and for I think about a month. And during that time, I had connected with a lot of the parents in the Big Ten from the different schools. I'm sure you remember kind of the movements we had. We had a rally at the SHU. And so we had pulled together this Big Ten Council of Parents to really talk about, how can we get the season back? And we had written some letters together. And so when I talked to Stacy, I said, this is great and it's great for Ohio State, but how do we make this national or Big Ten centric, for sure. And so thinking about all of these parent contacts I've been reaching out to some of them. And of course, this is happening on every single campus. So while this is great that we have this opportunity at Ohio State, I wanted to automatically jump to the big, like, how can we really make a difference? And talking to the parents at the Big Ten. And then additionally, I've been in contact with the commissioner of the Big Ten, Kevin Warren. And so I'm hoping to work with him and work with the Big Ten parents and make it a Big Ten effort. And then if we get one conference on, maybe we can get the next conference and we can really make a difference in everybody's lives. And so again, just thank you for the opportunity, and I will pass it off. And I hope to see most of you tomorrow at the game, and I'll see all of my lovely women tomorrow when I get there. So thank you again.
Amanda, thank you. That really is I've been asked, like, what do you all hope that happens? And really our hope as moms was just, let's start the conversation amongst ourselves. And then maybe we can have larger conversations like this on this campus, maybe other campuses. And then ultimately Amanda jumps in with the vision of, we're going to need to get to conferences, right? And then we have another mom who wasn't able to be here, but her son plays at Navy. She's like, there is nothing on the NCAA website about student mental health, student athlete mental health, or protection against any sort of online social media attacks. Ultimately, we'll have to have a conversation with the NCAA, right? But they're all baby steps. So we're very honored to even just have this opportunity. I know all of us were just so moved when Nicole brought this up, and we thought, okay, that's step one. We'll try that. But that's ultimately our goal, is if we're really going to help these student athletes, male, female, across the board, no matter what sport, we're going to have to keep reaching out to other campuses, other conferences, to really get this to be something that's collaborative. Next up, Christina Miller. Hi, babe, how are you?
Hi.
She's going to be going to her younger son's lacrosse game tomorrow because she's a super mom. So she's joining us via Zoom. Chris, take it away.
Yes, live from Georgia and heading to North Carolina in a few hours, as we all are busy moms. But yeah, this is a really important conversation to have, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this. Messages like, you suck, please kill yourself. You're so overrated, you need to transfer schools. We don't want you here. I hate you so much, I'm going to find you and kill you. Crazy conversations. And this is a part of being a student athlete that nobody warns you about, but everybody knows. Like, when you talk to people who've gone through it, they're like, oh yeah, that happens. So it's not new. I think what's new is that the ability for people to get to these student athletes so readily has changed. So in the past, you're going to get a letter in the mail. Now it's a direct message going straight to these student athletes in their private space. And, they could be home already. There's nobody who's going to beat you up worse than yourself when you have a bad game. So, when you're going through recruiting, you're like, this is fantastic. This is going to be so much fun to play. And then you make a mistake. And it's not a matter of if you make a mistake, it's when. As soon as you get on the field, you're going to have a mistake. And the floodgates open. and to be clear, we're not talking about just criticism, and we're not talking about technique or skill. We're talking about assault on our student athletes. And, you can't imagine going to your job and making a mistake and then somebody telling you to kill yourself. I can't imagine. I work in the operating room. That would never happen, ever. So, and then you compound that by doing it in front of millions of people. when you're already under a lot of pressure. And then, you know, hundreds drop into your DMs and leave these nasty messages. So, you know, it's really difficult. In fact, in researching this topic, and it's all over, you could search anything, and cyberbullying, suicide rates, and it's really gone off the rails, and not just student athletes, for everybody, unfortunately. But they've actually coined a phrase now. It is now termed cyberbullicide, which is suicide directly or indirectly influenced by experiences with online aggression. And that's what, you know, we need to worry about with our student athletes, because they are highly susceptible to this kind of behavior. So really what we're advocating for, and what do student athletes need? Education, you know, social media 101 during freshman orientation. You know, what can you expect to receive as a student athlete in terms of social media? How can you protect yourself? How can you limit who has access to your DMs, or, you know, suggesting setting up separate points of contact for NIL opportunities, since we're in that era, so that, you know, if a student wants to keep their DMs closed, that there's another avenue, whether it be a parent or an agency or a close friend who can filter through these messages that are sent. You know, these attacks are already very isolating for these student athletes, and, you know, when it happens, they feel alone, extremely vulnerable. And the answer is not, don't read them, just stay off social media. Why would you listen to somebody who you wouldn't get advice from? Well, because they're coming into your bedroom and they're saying these nasty things. And, you know, the answer is not to isolate the student athlete further by removing them from their contact with their friends and family. It's education. And it's, you know, it's to prepare them, so when this happens, because it will, that they know how to respond to threats and inappropriate behavior, and what to do and who to go to. So, you know, that's what we're really advocating for as well, just getting some education to these student athletes.
They're not gladiators, they're people just like us. We just play sport. It's glamorized, yes, it is. But it's just a sport, it's just a game. And they're just people. So I'm going to jump over. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to pass it over to Shona. Shona Burr has a son who's a kicker. So unique player position, and obviously he's the only one that makes or misses it. So she definitely relates to the pressure on the field for sure. And she's going to also talk a little bit about our perspective on what drives social media. So this is Shona.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I want to ask a question of all of you in the room. So how many of you all have played a sport in your lifetime? Like, raise your hand, like really high. Okay. So what sports? Give me an idea. What? Softball? Volleyball. Track.
Sailing.
Love it. What about you, Darling? Track, super. So most everyone, I think, in this room, I was able to engage each and every one of you. So I want to ask you, when you prepared for that sports or that game or that experience, did you go out to intentionally make a mistake? How many went out to make a mistake? Who's a soccer player out here? Anyone? Did you, a couple soccer players? What about you were just chosen for a PK? Like, right, you're gonna, and you are so excited that you have this opportunity and you miss it. Or you make it. And depending on whether you miss it or you make it, the energy is gonna change just like that. And the difference between what you all are experiencing and our athletes are experiencing, male, female, when I was growing up, I was a big athlete, soccer, baseball, basketball. I mean, I really wanted to take the free throw. Like I wanted to get fouled so bad. Because I was like, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna make the free throw. I'm gonna make a difference in this game because I have prepared for this and I intentionally go out to perform, not for just myself, my team, my high school, my college. The difference between what happened with me and you all are experiencing is social media. The only people that knew that I really missed that foul shot was maybe a couple hundred people, not 9 million. So I would have to come off and sit down on the bench and really learn how to process. And at the time, what kind of tools do I have psychologically to make sure that when I go home, I don't internally shame myself for missing, right? So that's the difference. Now we have a social media platform that will give you millions of reasons why you should shame yourself. And it's wrong. So social media is a blessing and it's interactive and it's connecting, but it's also significantly abusive to a lot, not just athletes, all of us out here on campus, right, that have been bullied. Really, this is about DM bullying, right? And a lot of us have all been either publicly shamed, bullied, maybe treated poorly. There's a lot of beautiful women in here, right? We know what it's like maybe not to be treated so well by other women, right? So it really collectively, we can make a difference and start sharing love, right? Sharing how we can embrace people that have made mistakes and that maybe we didn't hit that. And okay, so I have a kicker, right? And a lot of what these precious women and moms have to deal with, I have a Division III kicker, right? Very different than Ohio State kicker, right? I mean, there's just a lot more pressure on the kicker. But I know my son has been preparing for about 7 years to kick on a collegiate level. And there's no one on that field that wants to hit that field goal more than my son. And just know that if he misses it, and it sometimes brings tears to all of our eyes, if he misses it, it's not because he wanted to. So, and I was just bringing up with Stacy this morning, I think that you all probably know about who Brene Brown is. Does everybody know who Brene Brown is? And she wrote Gifts of Imperfection, right? We're not perfect. We're not perfect. And she's a researcher in shame. And when you publicly shame any individual, the trauma like neural pathways, the trauma goes deep and deep. And then when you hear the DMs over and over and over, that shame continues to build at a soul level for these young athletes and for all of us, just to be kinder. So the last thing that I want to share is my passion for the fact that social media is driven by advertising dollars, right? I mean, how many times do we see sponsors and ads? You guys see it all day long. So advertising dollars are spent on engagement. So if the less engagement we have on the negative tweets, the negative comments, and the more engagement we have on the positive, maybe how someone could have done maybe a little bit better, how exceptional they did play. We need to engage more so on positive rather than negative, right? So, but unfortunately, collectively, I think as a culture, we're more stimulated by negativity. And so that's going to drive dollars. So we really need to do a huge shift here and shift what really stimulates advertisers to actually have some accountability here on what's going on with mental health for all of our young people. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Really, I mean, spread the word, really try to continue to make an impact. If you see a negative DM, you'll encourage people. athletes or no athletes, that really, because we're all working on trying to do the best we can, whether it's on or off the field. And that's what's so impressive about what, just the fact that you all have been here today means so much to us. I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day, because this is an important, foundationally, and Stacy came up with our logo. It's called Life Over Logo. It's pretty powerful. Life over logo. These are individuals living lives for our entertainment, and their logo doesn't define them. Our Ohio State, Kalamazoo, wherever our young men and women are. That's what I love about the power of the movement and the message that Stacy is really trying to convey. It's life over logo.
Thank you, Shannon. We need to wrap it up. I'm gonna pass it over to Rakisha just so you guys can all get to know her. She has some really powerful things to say, and then Nicole has a whole.
We have a couple other people who joined us.
Perfect. Okay, just a second, Ms. Ruth.
Hello, everyone, and thank you guys for having us and joining us. I think all of these ladies have done a perfect job of introducing our initiative, our platform, and I really don't have that much to add to it because we have covered a lot of things. My name is Rakisha Cowan. My son Jacoby is a defensive end here. He is a sophomore in the classroom, redshirt freshman on the field. I am the secretary of the Football Parents Association, and a few of the other ladies, Amanda, Chris, and Monica, we're all on the board. So we do have a lot of contact with all of the parents and a lot of the student athletes as well. Thank you guys, students, for taking time out of your day to join us, because that means a lot to us. I have been in the health and human services, mental health, behavioral health, and substance abuse fields for over 17 years. So mental health is very close to me, very, very close to me. I deal with children, adolescents, and adults. So it's just not about the student athlete to me. It's about people in general with dealing with mental health. Lots of times people forget that just being a human is hard enough from day to day, let alone adding activities, athletics, and other things to it. That just intensifies the struggles. I think social media was intended to be very positive, and it was intended to be an outlet to intensify the ability to recruit, the ability to meet individuals, the ability to socialize. However, with everything, just like with everything, you're gonna find individuals to take a positive and make it negative. I was an athlete. My brothers were athletes. I'm a coach's daughter. Totally different from when I was growing up. Totally different from the recruiting aspect of it to the human aspect. And I think just in general, we as a people, we have gotten away from human decency. Human decency. We have lost a lot of humanity somewhere along the way. And I think it's important to steer ourselves to get it back, to pull it back in the road. I know that when my brothers were recruited for sports, it was nothing like when Jacoby went through recruitment. And the recruitment, it's all fine and dandy. It's all love. You're known. It's easy access, but sometimes it's too much access. It's too much access, and it invades in personal space, and it causes I don't think people realize our children as student athletes on this level, they take on roles that require that bring on immense pressure and lots of stress. Overnight, our athletes quickly go from just regular teenagers to being viewed as verified public figures. And as a 19-year-old, actually when Jacoby started school here, I was here in Ohio for a month because He started when he was 17. He was here for like 2 months and he was 17. So you go from being a high school student, graduating high school early, coming into a D1 environment, and you're just regular, getting breakfast in the morning, mom waking you up, you guys going to school, to stepping on a campus where you're a D1 athlete for the Ohio State University. And you're now a verified on social media public figure where you're just opened up yourself to access. I don't think any 17-year-old can really prepare for that transition without some type of outlet or foundation to support them. And it's very important. And I'm gonna also share with you guys, because like I said, I love creating and being outlets for individuals. My social media, if you guys ever want to contact me because you feel like you don't have an outlet, and I know teachers and parents and things like that, they're thinking, you know, I'm here for my child, we're close, but they don't always understand that you're not the outlet they're looking for, because you are supposed to support them. So sometimes they need someone who doesn't have a direct connection to them. So therefore they can definitely open up to them and then therefore feel comfortable enough to help them take in whatever they need to release. So if you have a pen or a pencil, you can write down my social media, and on Instagram, I'm on there the most, and Twitter, but it's Miss Cowan to you. And that's MSCOWAN, the number 2 and the letter U. So please feel free to contact me anytime and we can discuss whatever, and it will be confidential because like I said, I am in that field. So it is very near and dear to me. Shauna was speaking about kickers, and I just wanted to share this briefly because this really happened on Twitter. This was in regards to a soccer kicker, and these were some of the tweets that were tweeted out to that particular kicker. This one says, "Kill yourself. You cost us the game and any chance at a national title. Go to Australia and play soccer, you bum. I hate you. Please transfer. Sincerely, all the team up north fans." I won't say that. Go back to Australia. Quit playing football. Hope you know half of the team up north wants to kill you. You know, it's those things there that really they're happening. They're happening more than people realize. And it's not, like I said, it's not just athletes, it's students in general, because social media has opened that up and allowed easy access for that to happen. I also want to let you guys know that there's a very thin line between criticism and personal attacks. And believe it or not, personal attacks are happening more often than not. And in extreme cases, there are lots of threats going on. So do not feel like you have to take it on by yourself. Do not feel like you have to accept it and that it's okay, because it is not. And there's always someone to talk to. And what we are trying to develop here is a group, a platform, so that we can help get this ball rolling and get this thing streamlined so that it's not such a popular thing. We want we want positive to be popular, not negative. You get it even in reality TV. They get their views because they have so much drama and negativity. Well, we want the positivity to outweigh the negativity, you know. And so, you know, like I said, just we are going to go around to different universities and colleges of all divisions. I've even made contact with the largest HBCU in the United States, North Carolina A&T, with their athletic department to try to get them involved as well too. So this is nothing that stops here. It starts here with the conversation, but it doesn't stop here. And again, thank you guys for joining us.
We have a round of applause, please. To 3 more incredible women who have joined us to give us a slightly different take on this circumstance. So I'm going to start here on the screen. The incredible Julie DeCaro, famous in media across the country, but she's working for Deadspin now. Is that right, Julie? You're muted. There we go. Wait, you're still muted. We can't hear you yet.
2 years into this thing and I'm still trying to figure out my mic.
You're on. And then I'd also like to, we've joined us is Chelsea Day from Ohio State here working with the mental health of our student athletes. So she's part of an amazing team, which extraordinarily is only 4 people, right? 4 or 5 people, 5 people who handle mental health for all of our student athletes, which count more than 1,000. So it's an extraordinary lift. And we have some other guests here who we're going to talk to shortly. And then the amazing Coach Holtman's incredible wife, Lori Holtman, is here, who has a really incredible perspective on this, having been on the ground floor, unfortunately, of the most extreme vitriolic experience that we had publicly here at the university in a long time. And so I'd like to start actually with Lori. You know, can you kind of walk us through what that moment was like for your family and for the coaching staff, and just the experience of being someone who loves those players when you saw what EJ was going through during the NCAA tournament?
Well, yeah, I think that was probably the most devastating thing that we had to go. It's probably the most devastating thing we've been through as a family, because in basketball, it's a little bit different. We're able to, we host those kids in our house, and we really try to create a family environment and get to know those players. In fact, we're having some recruits over tonight, and, their moms will be there and they'll be asking me questions and, hey, are you going to take care of my baby? And, it really, it felt, it was shocking because I just haven't seen, we have dealt with negativity a lot. He's a grown man, and he can wade through that. It's still painful, but he's mature enough, I think, to put that in its place now. We have an 11-year-old daughter who we have forbid to Google her dad's name because we don't want any of that to kind of get in her brain. But with EJ, it was something entirely different, something that went way further than I could honestly believe. And we don't know. I think that they did do some. They tried to figure out who it was, and I think maybe it was more to do with some gambling issue, like sports betting. But it doesn't matter what the source is. It's completely inappropriate, and my heart just really hurt for EJ and his family, and that they had to go through that was devastating.
Julie, you have an incredible perspective that horrifies me on a daily basis. But you've been so candid about it, and I love reading your book because I love reading you, but I hated the content that you were faced with. So could you talk about what it's been like to face your experiences with social media and kind of how it helps you understand this particular circumstance a bit more than maybe the rest of us?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is that, this has been the online harassment that I've had to deal with just by virtue of being a sports writer and writing about issues that people don't like, meaning, the intersection of sports and race, sports and gender, sports and sexuality. There's been a lot. And I struggle to deal with it in my 40s. I recently went back into therapy to deal with it. So the idea of teenagers, and I have 2 sons in college right now as well. They are children to me still. I mean, their brains haven't finished developing. And the idea that, they would have to deal with what I've had to deal with is really appalling. So my heart goes out to all the parents out there dealing with this. The stuff that has come at me, I was getting it again today on Instagram. I recently got off Twitter entirely because it is just a toxic waste dump that enables absolutely the worst of humanity. The problem is that for so many of us, Twitter is where we get information, whether it's about, the politics, sports, whatever. It's all happening on Twitter in real time. So it's very difficult, I think, not just to be a member of the media, but if you're a person who sort of craves information on a regular basis, you're constantly hitting refresh on that phone. And I think that, the social media in that way really has changed our brains, and that we're constantly looking for the new thing, the next thing, what's new, what's everybody talking about, to the point where, you see people who are uncomfortable when they don't have their phones. So a lot of the advice that I've gotten when people are threatening to come to my office and kill me was ignore it, just ignore them and they'll go away. And, don't feed the trolls is this refrain that you hear all the time from people. And I think it's absolutely horrible advice because first of all, different trolls want different things. And as someone mentioned, I mean, I think sports gambling is only going to add to the rise of online harassment and threats as people lose money and focus that ire on the players. So it's difficult. I mean, I think that we really need to hold employers and big institutions responsible for protecting their employees. For lack of a better word, that's what college athletes are. So if you're going to put people out there, if you're going to put reporters out there, if you're going to put student athletes out there, and you're going to subject them to this, then you have to be prepared to protect them as well. And that seems to be the step that we're missing in a lot of places.
Three more, and what a brilliant segue to Chelsea,
Yep.
who I can only guess of what you encounter when you talk to student athletes, but can you help us see it from their perspective? I mean, we see it from those who love them, we see it from those who've experienced it in a different realm of sport, but what is it like for them? How do you advise?
Yeah, so I've been working in mental health in Power Five space in athletics departments for the last 6 years. I think the first encounter that I had was with a kicker at one of the institutions who missed a really important kick. And certainly I can't get on social media after games, and I don't do, because I want to get on and be like, you don't even know. And my husband works in sports marketing and PR, and so a lot of his jobs like social media and sports. So he's just going down. I'm like, these people, the kids. He's like, just put it down. And so I had a kicker come in, and I think the added layer at the college level is what he was reading to me, some of the tweets that were sent. And he was like, well, I get on there because it's a way I connect with family and friends, and it's not that I want to see these, and I'd like to avoid it. But the added layer for him was then, so this happens on a Saturday. He has to go to class on Monday.
Yeah.
And there were people that made shirts bashing him. And so he's going to class, and he's sitting in classrooms, not knowing who's tweeting this stuff, not knowing if someone sitting next to him in class is the one saying these things, or God forbid, faculty or staff. And so it creates a feeling of being unsafe.
Yes.
I've heard a number of athletes who say, thank God for online classes, because I don't trust my faculty and I don't trust the campus community in terms of just how they view me, the things they might say. That's separate from genuine mental health stuff, right? But this is this added layer that I think people don't recognize and we don't think about is, I know when I come to work, I go into my little office in St. John Arena and I see the same 4 people that I see, and I'm a student athlete, but I also don't have to wonder. I'm not in a big public space. I'm not walking to classes. I'm not going to dining halls. I'm not going out to eat in town and having to worry about that. And so that in and of itself is this chronic stressor. And so that's a health component, right? We know that chronic stress is terrible for our health, increases the risk of injury. So now we have stress and increased risk of injury, which is going to affect us on the field, which is going to get more vitriol from the internet. And we know that the college years are the time where most mental health issues present themselves. So it is a time where if you have just a charmed life, low stress, just happen to luck out in life, it is still the period of time when mental health is most likely to fail. It's the greatest transition that most of us will go through in our entire life. Leaving home, moving into early adulthood, being on our own, figuring all of this stuff out. You add college athletics, which is just a whole different ballgame. And so we're already predisposed to this age period. We now have very little control in our life because it's a high structure, which has some benefits, but also can wear on our mental health. We've got the human factor. Our athletes have families. They've got parents who maybe have divorce or other issues going on. Maybe grandparents are dying. Maybe friends are struggling. They've got relationships, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc. Right? And all of these components. And then all of this stuff on top of it. If a family member of mine dies, it'll be very hard, and I will take my day off or 2 days off or whatever, and I will come into work and do my job. I don't have to then be thinking about all of these things, because that's the other piece too. It's not just performance. I mean, I remember being in college and I remember being at a hockey game. I went to Miami University, the greatest place on earth. And at the time, I mean, so we had a really, really great ice hockey program at the time. And I remember that it was the early days of social media. Facebook had just come out. That's how I am. And you could only connect with people that went to your same school. It was very kind of locked down thing. Our computers were wired into the wall. Wi-Fi wasn't a thing. And I remember going to a game and people had poster board and they had printed out pictures from Facebook of opposing team player like girlfriends. So it's also not just posting, right? It's taking information.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that their family's going through this thing. Oh, I heard about this thing. So now I can target you and try to break you down in that aspect. So there's all of these other layers beyond just kill yourself because you performed for it. I mean, certainly that's horrible, but that's not it. If that was it, that would be bad enough, right? But we have this wear down of our mental health. And then we have the stigma that exists. We are so blessed here at Ohio State that we've got bilingual. We certainly need more. Make sure to tell everybody. But we've got a really good program. We've got really robust services. We are embedded in the spaces that our athletes are. But they're pressed for time. There is still stigma. It is still difficult. And what's the fix? I can sit with someone for an hour every single week. But if every single week there are new messages about killing yourself, it's not a one-off thing. And so it's this chronic mental health risk, this chronic stressor. And I think if people are telling you on social media to kill yourself, you're not gonna be like, hey, you know what? I'm struggling with my mental health. Like, why would I say that? That opens the door for way more stuff. So now I have to hold that in and I have to keep it to myself because I need to look strong because this isn't affecting me because I'm not supposed to feed the trolls. So I'm fine until we're not, right? And so every single year, and best practices from a media perspective is to not publicize death by suicide because there is a lot of evidence related to cluster suicides and all these things. So every single year, there are multiple student athletes across the country who die by suicide. You may not hear about it because it's best practices not to kind of blow that up in the media, but it happens every single year. Because we don't hear about it, we may not think about it. And so it is a serious, tangible, real issue. And I mean, I talk to my husband a lot. It's not often as much college people. It's often older men. We're real. Sports betting is a big piece of this that are saying these things to our young people who they have no business saying. I mean, I don't even enjoy watching sports anymore. And I'm a big sports fan, got into sports psychology because when a kicker misses the kick, like I feel really torn. Like I want to be like, and then I'm like, what? Well, poor guy. It's hard to be a fan if we're really thinking about the mental health and the humanness of it. I'll never work at Miami for that reason. I have this weird investment. I don't think it's too much.
Well, Julie, I'm curious, you straddle that line too. Like I'm thinking about the game where the kickers traded missing a couple weeks ago, where I know they were completely abused on social. So we have this need to cover what people do, but then we have this desire, and I felt the same way you did, Chelsea. I'm like, oh my God, this poor guy, I can't even believe he's gonna face tomorrow. That I don't even want to talk about this. And Julie, you did such an extraordinary thing when you and Sarah did that video, reading the mean tweets, which everyone would hope would go, oh, well, this is going to fix this problem. This is horrible. No one would ever do this. And I can't see any change. Did you? And if, could you tell us how to fix this problem?
Yeah. I'll tell you, and then we can all go home. It's when people always ask me, it's better now, right? Like after you guys did the video and everybody saw it, it's better, right? And the fact is, I think it's probably worse. I think that the type of rhetoric we see in our political institutions has suddenly made it okay. When I was growing up, I never saw politicians talk about each other's family members the way that they do now. I think that gave a signal to a huge swath of the country that this is okay, that this is the way you talk to people. How to fix it? I really think it's going to take big institutions holding social media responsible. So, you know, I have friends who work at other media outlets that are bigger than the one I work at. And, you know, when I'm going on, you know, 6 straight years of death threats, rape threats, just constant crap coming at me every single day. I wake up in the middle of the night. If I went on Twitter, I would see stuff people are saying about me and writing about me. Um, and I have friends who work at other outlets who have security that works for them, that will identify these people, that will get their IP addresses, that will go to Twitter and Instagram and say, hey, look at what's happening here, who in some cases have tracked these people down and have gone to their house and have said, we know who you are, cut it out, or, you know, we're going to take steps. Most people don't have that at their job. And in fact, we have a lot of people working in HR these days who are sort of like, oh, I'm not really on social media. I don't really understand it. And, you know, if you want to work with people who are in the public eye, you have to be up on this stuff because you have to understand the dynamics of it. You have to understand that just get off social media isn't helpful, that telling someone don't feed the trolls isn't helpful. If someone was walking around behind you screaming, you know, racial epithets or you know, gender slurs or whatever at you, we wouldn't say you just have to ignore it. But when it happens online, that's sort of everybody's attitude. And, you know, I was bullied in junior high, like a lot of people were. And I remember, you know, getting off the bus was such a relief because then it was over. I was home and nobody could get me. Social media is not like that. They can get you 24 hours a day anywhere that you are. And, you know, I feel a lot like I'm constantly in this fight or flight mode where I can just feel the anxiety running through my body. I know that I have censored myself. There's been topics that I really want to talk about that I really think, you know, a woman's voice needs to be in the mix, but I have not because I don't want the blowback. And what it's basically doing is silencing women, people of color, members of the LGBT community, because the vast majority of this abuse is coming from straight white men, many of whom are far older and should know much better than they do. So, you know, social media, everybody, you know, Twitter wants to be able to say we have 5 billion accounts or whatever it is, because they think that helps them with advertisers. And, you know, I really think it is going to take companies going to Twitter and saying, you know, you need to cut this out. You need to get this under control. But there's just nobody really doing that, as far as I know, maybe a company here or there. But you know, I think that most of these social media platforms have shown that they don't really care about this stuff. I mean, hate speech and misinformation is a big topic right now. I think that the online harassment topic should be just as big because I think it's doing real damage to people every single day. It's you know, once you put yourself out there and you talk about it, then you become a target for it even more. And like I said, I struggle to navigate this in my 40s. So I don't know how student athletes are doing this. And I have had to tell my college age students, don't tell anybody I'm your mom, because I don't want people harassing them at school because of me. So until, you know, people that actually matter, people that advertise, people that have a lot of pull, Apple, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, you know, companies like that, until they go after the social media platforms and are like, get this under control, or we're not going to advertise on your platform anymore. I don't think it's going to change. They really have no incentive for it to change.
Well, Lori, you're about 3 days away from a season starting. Is that right? Yeah. It's just whips down the pipe here. What's the advice? You know, we ended the season on such a horrifying note. Moving forward now, what's the message that gets conveyed to the team and your family about how they can balance this need and desire and opportunity with just people who are there to.
I know Chris really talks to our team a lot about finding their truth and finding what is, you know, what they know to be true about themselves and where, you know, where does that truth come from? And I think that's helpful. I think it's helpful to have your team. We can refer our student athletes to, I know that is helpful. But I think I struggle with what is the answer? How do we help? And look at our players' moms in their eyes and tell them we're going to take care of their kids, right? And so what more can
and we do as a family, as a basketball family here at Ohio State to protect our, our players, because they're everything to us. And I hate that they have to struggle and go through it and deal with it. You can only say so many times that person is not an Ohio State fan. That's not a typical Ohio State fan. You don't know, like you said. And how scary is that? You don't know who it is that's saying these horrific. So I don't know. I wish I had better answers, but our goal is just to love them and support them and listen to them and direct them to the professionals that can help them manage it. And I stay off of Twitter because I'll lose my mind, and I don't have great self-control. And my husband's forbidden me to ever post anything. And so I would not be a good thing, right? It wouldn't be good for the university and personally, and probably my daughter. But I wish that there was more. I wish there was more.
I think that's why we're here.
Yeah, I really resonated with something that Julie said, and as a group of moms, we have talked about this. Why isn't this being addressed? We've talked about it as a group, like, why isn't this being addressed? It's been going on for so long. I mean, the comments that Rakisha read were from 2015. It's been going on, right? And we were like, okay, well, think about it. The players can't, it was so unique that EJ did that. But the players really don't feel like they can say anything because it exposes them, right, Julie? I mean, like you were saying, it's
Yeah.
gonna expose you even further. It's gonna make you a target of more of this. And then, like what you were sharing, it's like now there's more information for people to use against you, right? And then the added layer of you're supposed to be this gladiator, tough guy or female athlete, nothing's supposed to bother you. So how lame are you that you have an issue with tweets? So now it's like, okay, so they can't address this. Now players, coaches, well, what are they gonna do? Make all the fans mad, make it look like you think all the fans are terrible? And I thought your husband did an amazing job in that article. Like, these are not the reflections of really what we believe are truly Ohio State teams, right? But there's this fine line of, let's get honest, especially at a bigger level. Okay, for example, I don't know if y'all know this, but Ohio State football program is $1 billion a year program. $1 billion. It's $1 billion. Of all the football programs in the country, Ohio State brings in the most money of any program. Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Tennessee, I don't care. $1 billion. So then I think all those coaches have to be so careful to make sure you're not, I mean, the fan base is, it's advertising and the fans and being able to 7:30 primetime game and I mean, all this stuff. And the money that the football program brings in, the $1 billion, is what funds the entire athletic department for every sport, pretty much. Pretty much. I love lacrosse. I think lacrosse is super fun. You don't play lacrosse in the shoe. There wouldn't be enough people going there buying tickets. One game. I love hockey. Hockey is so much fun. I love women's volleyball, used to play. Love women's basketball, used to play. I even road crew, love it. What funds all college programs is their football program. 2 years ago during COVID, Stanford had to cut 11 of their scholarship programs just because they weren't going to bring in the dollars from one fall season. So we just need to be mindful. The players can't talk about this. The coaches really can't talk about this. So who's going to start talking about this? And that's where we decided, what is it? We're going to get offended that moms are saying, stop threatening to kill my kid. Go ahead. I'm an adult. Pick on me. That's fine. I'm an adult. I have tools in my toolbox. We all feel this way. Go ahead and pick on us. We're adults. Yeah. Like you said, I mean, your husband's emotionally mature. It's not his favorite, but he'll figure out how to process it. Don't be telling our 17, Max was 17 when he went to college, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds you're gonna go kill them. Most likely because you just lost money on the game. So this is where I just thought, Julie, that was really powerful because that's how we've been feeling collectively. We can't expect our players to be talking about this. It just makes them a bigger target. It's not gonna happen.
Or we had set aside some time to talk with each other so that we could maybe think of ways, what you guys are thinking. We want you to help us and figure out how to move forward. So we have mental health professionals from our counseling department. They're going to sit at different tables. So one there, we have one here, and then maybe Chelsea up here. Stuck out. It's stuck out. Okay. But I want you guys to gather in, kind of even up these tables, and we're going to spend about 15 minutes. Just let's talk about this and see what you're thinking and see how we might find a resolution about anything. I'm going to ask one of my interns, where are they? Yeah, could you guys take notes? And we'll have 3 different main things going. But then if you guys are going to stay over there, one of you, you all know how to take notes. One of you would take notes. That would be great. And then we're going to collect this, and our moms are going to join at each table as well, right? And then we're going to talk to the people online at the same time. So let's just have a conversation.
All right. I'm gonna unplug this for the moment. Hello, everyone. Yes, absolutely. Did you join a table? Hi, Julie. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good.
We have friends online that we were hoping that you guys, if you were interested, would either jump into the chat or we can, see, I'm trying to think. We have your, I can see all the attendees. So if anybody wants to be pulled in, we can pull you over so that you can start talking if you want to raise your hand or put something in the chat, but we'd love to hear what you're thinking about this topic. And if you have thoughts, I see Bruce Wimbish is on here. Hey, Bruce. Just looking down here. Steve Chapelier, welcome. It's great to see you guys. Lucia. We'd love to hear what you're thinking about what you've heard and maybe how we could address this in ways that we're not thinking of, because I don't know. I think I speak for Julie that we're out of ideas.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, honestly, I feel like Ohio State Athletics is one of the people that might have enough pull to go to Twitter and put out a statement and say, we will not tolerate online abuse of our athletes. We're working with Twitter to figure out who you are, kind of thing. Like, when I'm talking about, huge organizations that have the pull to be able to make a difference with Twitter, I think that, athletic departments of major universities in the Power 5 conferences probably are groups that are able to do that somewhat.
No, I totally hear what you're saying. And, the question is, what will it take? And, Chris, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts of, has this conversation taken place at the coaching level here or the athletic director level of, being able to recognize, I think, recognizing the problem is part of it, but, being willing to acknowledge that it needs to be addressed is another. You're muted, Chris.
You're right. I don't know who starts that conversation, and certainly the coaches do have pull. Ryan has been very supportive of mental health issues, and certainly this plays into it. And I don't think he would, be against this kind of conversation. But I don't know who is the best person to start it. Maybe Gene Smith. But it certainly warrants conversation, because it's not just an isolated incident. It's not. The more people you talk to, the more players you talk to, and as we said before, we know players all over the country at every single level of sport. Guy sports, girl sports. This is universal. It's a universal problem, and obviously it needs to be addressed. So.
And Davika, we did not get your question, and I just gave you the ability to talk if you want to jump in. I'm giving everybody the ability to talk if anybody wants to jump in and converse with us on this. Anybody
Hi,
want to
can you
jump in?
hear me?
You can, yes.
Hi, thank you so
Hi.
much for hosting this. What an incredible conversation. My name's Davika. I work with the Ohio State Arts and Sciences Alumni Society Board, and I chair the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. And I believe that this is an important discussion to highlight the diversity and experiences that our students are facing and our student athletes are facing. In the comments I had proposed whether anyone would be interested in like a meditation mindfulness summit for the student athletes and their families, because while we can't always control the behaviors and the immaturity of people and the way that they respond to sporting events and things like that, I certainly think it would be of benefit as an action item to help our student athletes and their families learn how to manage the circumstances and experiences that are happening to them.
I think that's a terrific idea, and I'd be happy to bring that up with Jamie Houle, runs the mental health program here at Ohio State Athletics. He unfortunately couldn't be with us today. He had a death in his family, but I will absolutely mention to him, see if that's something that we can.
Yeah, I think the ability to manage the stress is, oh, go ahead. Okay, I'll go. I was just going to say the ability to manage the stress is so key. I mean, it is, like I said, it's like your body is constantly in fight or flight mode because you don't know, anytime you log on, you don't know where they're going to come at you. It can be on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like you really feel sort of paranoid and sort of like, you're like, oh my God, around, every corner. And I think a huge part of this too, is just connecting students with other people who understand what they're going through. A big thing for me was talking to Anita Sarkeesian, who was sort of one of the original Gamergate victims, and understanding that we had the exact same feelings, that the exact same things were being said to us. The exact same playbooks were being used for both of us. One of the things I think that's really hard for people to deal with is not just someone saying they're coming to kill you, which is bad, but, a lot of times people construct a false narrative about who you are, especially if you respond. And now they have this fictional character that they're going at all the time, that doesn't resemble who you are in reality at all. And, so I think that, just even having someone to talk to who says, oh my God, I've been through this. I know how you feel. I know they did that to me too. It goes a long way, I think, towards helping alleviate some of that.
What a great point. Chris, I'm wondering, is this anything that you guys talked about in recruiting? I mean, I've met with many recruits and I don't remember ever hearing about this. And is there anything that you'd advocate from that perspective that maybe we need to be more progressive and truthful about what the reality may be?
So, no, in recruiting, it's not talked about at all. You're a superstar and everybody loves you and everybody wants you, and it's all sunshine and rainbows and everything's perfect. So there is no talk about this at all. But then, when you start looking into it, when you get here and you realize the more athletes you talk to and you're in it 1 year, 2 years, and you're like, wait a minute, am I alone here? And you start talking to people, you realize you are not alone at all. It's far spreading and reaching. I mean, I unfortunately know of 3 student athletes that were actively considering suicide in this last year. That's horrible. And I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just a mom who knows other moms who have kids in sports. So it's really an epidemic in my opinion. And I think the way we start addressing it is by educating our student athletes, making them aware that this is a possibility, so that when it does come, we're not, it's done, you know, preventatively and not reactively. Like, I want to know beforehand, oh, you know what, they did say this might happen, and here it is, they were right, it is happening, so this is what I need to do, instead of, oh my God, I'm all by myself, this isn't happening to anybody else, I can't share it with anybody because then I look weak, so I'm just going to have to suck it up and suck it up and suck it up, and guess what, a year later, when they're done sucking it up, terrible things happen. So it should be talked about. And, you know, hopefully we can get some kind of, you know, little freshman social media 101 orientation. You know, honestly, it's good for everybody, not just student athletes, but the student athletes definitely need something.
Great point. Hey, Chris, that's a great point you have about legal being approached. We happen to have a couple lawyers on here. And so I don't know, Bruce, Steve Chapelier, do you guys have any thoughts about whether this is something that we should be looking at as a university legally, government affairs, looking into legislation? I'm just curious, legal minds, if you guys know of anything that would be appropriate in here. And you're all able to speak if you wish to, or type into the chat. Julie, did you seek legal recourse, and was there ever?
Yeah, I have multiple times, especially have gone to the police and, you know, have showed them horrific images that have been sent to me, threats. You know, a podcast recently declared it, quote unquote, open season on me. You know, I had to go to the police about that. But, you know, I will say that nobody really knows what to do about this. And even explaining to the police why you're there is difficult for them to understand. Like, our legal system just has not caught up with what is happening online. So it's hard. I mean, you know, that's why it's better coming from your employer. If your employer will go to the police with you and explain, you know, I used to practice law, and, you know, I've had to say, if someone was walking down the street screaming this in my ear, you would arrest them for harassment or stalking. And, you know, it's always been, well, you know, we'll take a report, we'll make a paper trail, but there's really not much we can do. So I still think we're several years behind legal having catch up with us.
It does seem like social and technology in general has just blown past all legal and ethical standards we ever held.
Yep.
Steve Chapelier, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Nicole. I think Chris Miser's two questions are very good. And thank you, Nicole, for highlighting that. I don't think either of them is the complete panacea, but they would help. I would start with government affairs and going to both the Ohio legislature and to Congress, because I think this should be addressed at both the federal level and the state, to look at amplifying whatever sanctions should be out there. And then the other is legal affairs. And so through the OSU Legal Affairs Office, they're on High Street, because you do need to find out, well, who's doing this? And then how do we get to them? And if we're getting blocked at getting that access, those are the folks that have the university's interests in mind and can help us with that legal part of it. Thanks, Nicole.
Oh, thank you so much, Steve. That was fantastic. Chris, what do you, I mean, you're the mom of an extraordinary student athlete. What do you tell Harry if he were to face something like this? What would be the message that you would like for he and other student athletes to know?
Well, he does face it. He has faced it. This last year was very difficult. And that's not a secret. He talked about that during fall camp, I guess. So those quotes I read were actually things that were sent to him. And it's tough. You know, you can't just say ignore it. That's like saying, you know, somebody who's depressed, just get over it. You don't just get over it, and you don't forget it. You know, he's been told, just stay off social media. Well, I mean, we know that's not reality for these kids. This generation that grew up on social media, that's how they connect with their friends. That's how they kill time by watching videos, you know, in between classes. I mean, that's just not a realistic expectation. So, you know, we have the difficult conversations. We talk about the clueless coach couches who, couch coaches is what we call them, clueless couch coaches. And, you know, most of them have never stepped a foot on a playing field ever, especially at this level. So they have no idea, you know, what it takes to do. You know, we try to concentrate on what the coaches say, what his teammates say, even what agents and GMs are saying to help refocus. You know, it's easy to say, don't listen to it, but it's so much harder to do than just say that. So it's a hard walk, and you know, you just take it as it comes. And he did get off social media for a long time. And you know, he asked me to monitor his messages in case an NIL thing, you know, came to be. So, you know, if something came, I could forward it to him. But now he's, you know, in control of his stuff again. And you know, just be cautious. And if it gets too much and it's really getting into your head, turn it off and get help. Talk to somebody. Share what's going on. And you know, you're not alone. Not by far.
It's such a, go ahead, Julie, please.
I was just going to say it's so difficult because, you know, objectively that the whole world doesn't hate you, right? But when 5,000, 10,000 people are coming at you and saying the same thing, it feels like it's the entire world. And yeah, it's really, really difficult to deal with. You know, I can tell you that since being off Twitter, my heart rate is down like 7 beats a minute, just my resting heart rate, because I'm not so stressed out about it anymore. But at the same time, like, it does hinder me professionally. I mean, you know, I've had pieces out and I don't have Twitter to promote on anymore. You know, I think one of the huge things that we need to pressure the platforms on is, for example, on Instagram, if someone sends me a comment and I block them, it blocks them and it blocks every future account that they make. A huge problem on Twitter is that they can just create another account. And they do. I mean, they just create. I've had guys that'll just sit there all day and create new accounts to keep coming at me. Twitter has never really given a reason why they don't enforce that and why they don't help with this and why people are able to, you know, screenshot things and send it to all the people you've blocked so they can all talk about you and, you know, and say things about you that aren't true. So, you know, if there's one place to pressure Twitter, I think that's it. When you block someone, there should be no way for them to get around that block.
What a great point, and I really am grateful for all of you. All right, I'm going to bring everybody back together for our last 5 minutes. So just hold tight for 1 second. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Moms are like, maybe we can talk about that.
All right, I know everybody is engrossed in conversation, and I'm really grateful, and I hope that it was a fruitful one. We have about 5 minutes left, and so I wanted to give the last word to my incredible partner on this, Stacy. Stacy, what should we do next? I mean, what would you like to see the rest of us do and become, and how can we make sure that this is not, we don't leave it in this room?
Yeah, so we had a great conversation. I think there's a couple layers of that the moms and I have talked about, and then also just sitting here talking about. One, we need to figure out a way to hold journalists more accountable for the stories they're writing, because the stories they write inspire online comments and conversations about these individual athletes. And so that's one piece that I know we've talked about as a team.
What a
and
perfect
we were just
conversation
talking
about
about
this
here.
group.
Cameron was just bringing that up. It's such a good point. You know, there's the intersectionality of change to the podcast on message boards. Those are a little different because you have to almost be a member to be a part of that. But I would even put that out there to them too. Like, remember and and have that gauge of humanity. The stories you're writing about are real people. That these are real people with real feelings. They're real students. They're someone's son, brother, nephew, uncle, whatever. I mean, they're people just like everyone here. So I understand, like Shona was saying, that advertising dollars are driven by traffic and clicks, and negativity sells more than positivity. But somehow we need to keep having these conversations. And I think the most important and powerful thing, and I give props out to EJ for doing this because it's hard to do, is bring the hidden things into light. You know, we'd love for everyone to go on our social media platform, Life Over Logo, Instagram, Facebook. And on that platform, we post at least one thing every day. Of the 7 days, 5 days are positive posts because we want more positivity than negativity. But 2 of those days we are calling out the trash because it needs to be brought into light. And I think if people don't know how this is affecting players, then they don't realize words have actions, right? What I say, picture me forming a little human and sending it on an assignment towards another human. I mean, my words matter. So I would love for people to go on there. I would love for people to keep having their own conversations. I would encourage all of you to leave here today and talk to your friends about this, and talk about how can we be more accountable for what we say. Speak life. I mean, it's important, right? So, and then I think to just continue to have these conversations on different campuses. There are several stories that we were not able to share today because honestly, they're too personal, and the players are going through it so deep that it wouldn't have been respectful. But y'all need to understand, I'm being very serious. Y'all all need to understand. There are several players I know right now that are on suicide watch at different campuses. And I can't divulge where, and I couldn't share. It's too close, right? But you need to understand over a game. And I love the sport. I love the game. Love it so much. Both my boys play it. Love it. But it's a game. They're people. It's a game. And we have moms at different schools that are very, very worried. Like truly, really worried. They're going to lose their son. So we just need to take this to heart. And I would love to see this conversation continue. And your input is so valuable. So please have a conversation online about this. Please connect our page. Like if you see something, we have a day we call Fan Foul Day. If you see something out of bounds, post it. There's an old saying, evil gets to do what it wants to do, as long as good people say nothing. One of the players said this, haters have a lot to say, but good people have a lot to say too. So don't underestimate the value of your words. And we need to just keep highlighting what's happening here so that we expose it. As long as we don't talk about it, it's just going to keep happening. Yeah. And I so appreciate every one of you. This has been
Give a round of
amazing.
applause.
Thank
for
you.
Stacey for all of- Thank you, Julie DeCaro,
Thank
so
you,
much for joining us in
Julie.
Chicago. All right, thank you all so much for being here. This was such a privilege to spend this time with you, and I know how busy all of you are. So I'm really grateful that you took the time to do this. Just a little heads up, couple things that are coming up that may be of interest to you. Monday, Joshua Perry and Evan Spencer will be in 106 Journalism talking about the behind the scenes look at their podcast, Glory Days. So it's a great opportunity to meet 2 people who were on the national championship team, who've gone on to terrific careers, who want to talk with you about what it was like to be on those teams. So that'll be Monday in the Journalism Building. And then mark your calendars for April 14th, the spring event for Sports and Society. We're going to look at creative work in sports. So we're looking at, it's called Creative Con. We're going to look at graphic design, visual media, social media, fortunately, video, photography, videography. We're going to have a mental health component to